Good morning, City Light family. Thank you for joining us today. I pray that this message will strengthen your walk and give you the tools that you need to draw closer to Him. Enjoy the message.
It's great. It's great to be here today. For those of you who are maybe a little bit more recent to call City Light home, my name's Lee, and your lead pastor is my father. And so can we give it up for the leadership of this house? It's amazing. It's good to be back. My wife and I were served here for many years on staff, and in June, we answered what we feel is the call of the Lord, and we moved away to accept a new assignment, and we currently live in Greenville, South Carolina. That's the place we call home, and we're loving it. But the most notable thing is that when Kara and I left, we were a party of 2 in the Brown house, and upon our return, we are a party of 3. Yeah. We introduced our daughter, Avery Lee, into the world in September. And babe, she's right here in the corner. Could you just give some honor where honor's due? This is my beautiful wife and my daughter. And if it weren't for Kara, oh man, I don't know where I'd be. I wouldn't be here, that's for sure. So love you, baby. And hey, let's jump in. Are you excited? Did you come expecting God to speak to you today? Did you come with high expectation for God to impart something into you to change your life? We are going to talk about, for the next 29 minutes, a talk I've titled, Peace Without a Doubt. Peace without a doubt. And if you have a pen or paper or anything, please, I encourage you to take notes, pull out your Bible. I'm going to have you underline a few things. But to preface my talk today, I want to give you the understanding that I really feel like this talk could take me 4 weeks to really unpack, and I'm going to try to put it in a bite-sized chunk in 29 minutes and give you the same amount of revelation. So hang on. It's going to be a fun ride, and I just believe some incredible things are going to happen today. Are you ready? All right. Open up to your Bibles, John 14. Put a finger in it, and we'll jump in there at the very beginning. Going to give you some context and preface this real quick. Romans 14:17 says, Paul is writing to the Roman audience, and he's saying, the kingdom of heaven is not a matter of food or drink. They were arguing and bickering over pointless things. He says, it's not a matter of these things. The kingdom of heaven is a matter of righteousness, peace, joy. Okay? So what Paul is saying is that the DNA, the culture, the characteristics of heaven are made up of righteousness, peace, joy. Where you have the manifestation of righteousness on earth, you have a piece of the kingdom manifesting on earth. You with me? Okay, so when the angels came on the night Jesus was born and declared to the shepherds, peace on earth, what they were declaring was on earth as in heaven. You with me? Okay, so the Prince of Peace had just entered the world. And what they're saying is the time clock has begun for the mission to be restored. What does that mean? Adam and Eve, they were put on the earth, and they were put in this garden. This garden was the manifestation of heaven on earth. God said, I give you, take dominion and subdue the earth and make the rest of the earth like this kingdom. With me? Adam and Eve sinned, lost that job description. Jesus' birth began the clock again to restore us to this job description. Jesus' death and resurrection then gives us the power and authority to carry out this job description. You with me? So Jesus' birth is the restoration for us, citizens of heaven, to restore our original purpose that God put us on the earth to do, on earth as in heaven. Subdue the earth, make the entire earth, the ends of the earth, look like heaven. Following me? Okay, so the important thing I want us to recognize is that when Jesus ascended back to heaven, he did not take his peace with him. That would be counterproductive to the mission of God. It would be, I've established heaven on earth with the peace, and now as I ascend, I'm going to take that with me. No, Jesus left the peace for you and I. That's where we'll pick up. John 14:27 says this, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Say my peace. My peace, the peace that enables one to sleep through a storm. The peace that isn't the absence of something, but the presence of someone. It's not the absence of chaos in your life. It's not the absence of stress and anxiety. These things will happen. We live in this corrupt world, but it's the presence of someone in the midst of the presence of these chaos. My peace I leave to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. The devil doesn't have a creative bone in his body. Creation cannot create, okay? So everything you'll find in the kingdom, there's an artificial or counterfeit version of it in the world. You see, the devil doesn't care if you have peace as long as it's world peace. It's an artificial peace. As long as at the end of the day, his chaos is more inferior than the peace you have today. He doesn't care if you have peace. It's world peace. It's inferior to the chaos of this world. Jesus is saying, I'm not giving you that peace. I'm not giving you the peace that today you're okay when everything's good, but as soon as she breaks up with you, God forbid, all peace is gone. I'm not giving you the peace that you're good today, but as soon as debt is overwhelming, your marriage breaks down because peace left. I'm leaving you my peace, which is superior to all of that. Don't let your heart be troubled or fearful. Say fearful. Fearful is the absence of peace. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Profound. Fear is the absence of peace. Where you have the absence of peace, you can be rest assured you have the presence of doubt somewhere. Where there's fear present, you can rest assured doubt is present. Are you in a moment of life where you are struggling with anxiety? You're scared of everything under the sun. What promise of God are you doubting in your life? Where is your fear? What are you doubting? If you figure out what you're doubting and take hold of the promise that he spoke into your life, fear will relieve. Peace will come. Why? Because it's a part of the kingdom. It's the atmosphere of kingdom. How do we enter this peace? Let's jump to Mark 4, verse 35. If you have your pen, get your pen ready. I'm going to have you underline a couple things here. On that day, underline that day. When evening had come, he told them, let us cross over to the other side of the sea. So they left the crowd, underline the word crowd, took him along since he was in the boat, and other boats were with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking over the boat. The Greek word here for this is actually translates as hurricane or tsunami. So picture a little boat in a lake, and there's like tsunami-like weather that they're encountering right here. The boat was already being swamped. He was in the stern sleeping on the cushion. This is Jesus. So they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die? He got up, rebuked the wind, said to the sea, silence. The Greek translation for this is also peace. Peace, be still. The wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Then he said to them, why are you afraid? Or why is fear present? Or why is peace absent? Do you still, underline the word still, have no faith? Or do you still doubt? And then it goes on to say that their response is, who is this man that even the winds and the waves obey? There's something quite fascinating about this narrative that struck me, and I want to present it to you today. Jesus rebukes two parties in this narrative. One is a direct rebuke, and one is more of an indirect rebuke. The first is Jesus rebukes the wind and the waves. He rebukes them, and he says, peace, be still. What Jesus does in this moment is he releases what's inside of him, and it redefines what's around him. As citizens of the kingdom, inside of us dwells the Holy Spirit. Inside of us dwells the King. And where the King is, his kingdom is also with him. So as Christians, as citizens of the heaven, we should be releasing what's inside of us and redefining situations around us, beginning with our character. Beginning with our own character. The kingdom of heaven is righteousness, then peace and joy. Beginning with our own character. Do not fall under the false impression that you can somehow have authority over the winds and waves that come into your life if you don't even have control over yourself. What kind of leadership would that be? Hey, you can have authority over this, but you can't even control your own lust. You can't even control your own greed. You can't control the anger in your heart towards a brother or sister when they cut you off in the road. Listen, there's some of you that have so much anger in your heart. If a dog won't start barking, you come this close to killing it. There's anger. There's anger. Self-control. Release what's inside of you. Redefine what's around you, beginning with your character. Jesus, in this moment, indirectly rebukes the second party, his disciples. And this is what really challenged me. It struck me to my core. Because the disciples on the surface don't really do anything worth a rebuke. And Jesus, he doesn't really rebuke, but he doesn't affirm what they do. What do the disciples do? A storm came, they had the God of the universe, and they ran to him. It's what we're taught to do as Christians. It's kind of like in our infrastructure. Like storms and winds come your way, just go to Jesus. And there's nothing wrong with this at all. This is actually very good and very healthy. But in this moment, Jesus doesn't affirm their choice to go to him. He doesn't say, good job, guys, I'm teaching you well. Anytime a storm comes up into you in the roadway of life, just run to me and I'll make it all go away. He doesn't affirm this. What Jesus does instead is kind of in a roundabout way says, why are you still fearful? Why do you, in this word, I had you underline it, still have doubt? It's almost as if Jesus had this expectation that they're at the bare minimum, they wouldn't be scared that they were about to die. Now reimagine where they're at. They're on a little boat in a hurricane. And Jesus has the expectation, at the bare minimum, that they would not be fearful. Amen. He doesn't affirm their decision to run to him. But what does this mean, this still doubt? What is Jesus actually talking about here? How can he have this expectation? To answer that question, we have to go back to chapter 3. For the sake of time, I'm going to paraphrase it and give you some key verses. But I really encourage you, go read Mark 3 through 6, all the way through. Fascinating narrative. And I'm giving you a lot of snapshots, but you'll be able to get a really good reading of this if you go back and read it for yourself. In chapter 3, we have Jesus really ministering at really his first crusade, if you will. Thousands of people. His first one that really the disciples are witnessing. And what he's doing at this crusade is he's articulating kingdom and parables. The kingdom of heaven is like mustard seed. The kingdom of heaven is like this. The kingdom of heaven is like... He's articulating kingdom. In verse 33 through 35, though, of Mark 3, it tells us that, or Mark 4, probably. It tells us that Jesus spoke in parables to everyone, but when he was alone with his disciples, he didn't use parables. He spoke plainly, clearly. So he is explaining kingdom dynamics, power of the kingdom, how kingdom operates, all of these things to his disciples without mystery. Clear as mud. It's without question, okay? Then what we see earlier in verses 3 through 7, we see that this multitude of people, they have now heard the articulation of the kingdom. Now they're seeing the kingdom demonstrated because Jesus is healing people. He's casting out demons. He's moving in signs and wonders. He is releasing heaven on earth. He is releasing kingdom on earth in this moment. So here we have the disciples. They clearly hear it articulated with no mystery, and then they see it demonstrated. Unfiltered power being released. And verse 7 through 9, Jesus commands his disciples, go get him a boat, because the crowds are literally, they're being healed just by touching him. So you have this multitude of people pressing up against Jesus, and he's like, go get me a boat, because if I don't get out of here, they're actually going to kill me, but because they have a multitude of people trying to touch me. And so that's where we pick up. He gets in this boat, and then read what happens in verse 35. On that day, are you catching this? It was on the very same day that Jesus, without mystery, explained every facet and aspect of the kingdom to his disciples. Then they saw it demonstrated, proof before their eyes, demonstrated kingdom. It was on that same day that when they're in the middle of the storm, they still doubted. What did they doubt? Probably a lot of things, but 3 things for sure. 1, they doubted that Jesus was the Messiah. How do I know? Well, the response was, who is this man? 2, they doubted the power of the kingdom. Clearly, after everything they had just heard and seen, they still doubted that we have the king of this kingdom on our boat, and we're scared that we literally believe we're going to die. The third thing they doubted, and this is the one I really want to focus on and carry on, is they doubted the spoken word of God. Because just before they got on the boat, Jesus said, we're going to the other side. He gave them a promise. He spoke it. He said, let's go. We're going to the other side. Are you with me? Are you catching this? It was when the waves and the wind came that they began to doubt this word. They began to believe their doubt more than this promise that God spoke. And it was in this moment that they believed their doubt more than the promise that they traded their peace for their unbelief. That's the moment peace left. That's the moment all authority that they had in the kingdom left. It's in this moment. They traded their peace for unbelief. Let's fast forward to Mark 6, verse 45. You could turn there. And we just skipped a big chunk of the narrative, so I'm going to give it to you and paraphrase it. What happens between this point and Mark 6, where we're going to pick up, is Jesus sends his disciples out 2 by 2 into their hometown, and he gives them power and authority to do everything they had just seen him do in this crusade. They go out, preach the kingdom, they articulate kingdom to their hometown, then they demonstrate it. They're healing people, they're casting out demons, they're doing all of these things at their own hands. Mind you, Jesus is not with them. They're alone, their own hands, they're doing these things, they're doing these works. So they come back to Jesus, they find Jesus back at the mountain, and naturally they have this multitude of people following them, right? Because they're doing all of these kingdom works. And so they come back to Jesus and say, Jesus, we're doing this. We're doing this at our hands. We're doing this. It's amazing. Jesus looks upon the crowd and he's like, man, there's just a bunch of sheep without a shepherd. And the Bible says he took compassion and he began to teach this crowd. And sometime through teaching this crowd, Jesus asked his disciples, how should we feed them? And it's amazing to me, John's account of the story, John actually says that he asked his disciples this to test them. It's fascinating. Go look it up. How many of you know when Jesus asks a question, it's not because he's lacking knowledge? So Jesus says, how do we feed them? And their first response is, let's just send them, Jesus. Send them to go get their own food. Jesus, it makes sense. Just send them. Jesus like, no, let me give you a hint. You feed them. Exact words in the Greek, whatever. You feed them. And they're like, Jesus, surely you've lost your mind. You know how much money it would cost to feed thousands? Let me tell you how much money. We don't have that much. It would break our budget. Our campaign for this kingdom thing wouldn't go so well because you would break our budget. It's not logistical, Jesus. It doesn't make sense, Jesus. There's easier systems and structures we can put in place, Jesus. Don't you know, Jesus, that this isn't wise, Jesus? I mean, the common man could tell you this goes against every bit of reasoning, Jesus. Come on, there's a better way. Jesus says, all right, I'm going to do for you what you could have done. 5 loaves, 2 fish, feeds thousands of people, and has leftovers. Now, Jesus at this point says, get in the boat, go to the other side. That's where we pick up Mark 6, verse 45. Immediately, he made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side to some city I can't pronounce. While he dismissed the crowd, after he said goodbye to them, he went away to the mountain to pray. Now, underline this. Well into the night, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. He saw them straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Underline this. Very early in the morning, he came toward them walking on the sea. Underline this. And wanted to pass them. When they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke with them and said, have courage, it's I, don't be afraid. Pause. Let's jump to Matthew 14:27. Same story, second half. Matthew is now the author. Picking up where we left off, verse 27. Immediately Jesus spoke to them, have courage, it is I, don't be afraid. Lord, if it's you, Peter answered him, command me to come to you on the water. He said, come. And climbing out of the boat, Peter started walking on the water and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the strength of the wind, he was afraid. Beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand, caught a hold of him, and said to him, you have little faith, why did you doubt? When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those in the boat worshiped him and said, truly, you are the Son of God. Did y'all catch it in Mark 6 where Jesus at night sees them struggling and he's just like, yeah, I'll go pray. Comes back in the morning and he's like, they're still struggling. I'm just going to walk on the water and pass by them. Did y'all catch? This wasn't Jesus saying, oh, let me save. No. This was Jesus trying to get them to realize what they had the ability to do. Have you ever taught your kid to swim by throwing them in the deep end of the pool? No, because we're all saints in here, right? Sure. You're all good people. Jesus is teaching his kids to swim by throwing them in the deep end of the pool. What he's wanting to do is get them to realize that what he's taught them, they have the authority to do, and he doesn't want to have to keep doing it for them. How long would it take you to get promoted if you kept asking your boss what to do and how to do it? If you've ever been a boss, you know that employee that you've shown 1,000,000 times how to change the toilet paper. And you're just like, I'm not showing you this again. This is my image of the disciples in this moment. What Jesus is seeing here is, hey, so in the first storm, they had me with them. But I want to see what they do in the event that, I don't know, I ascend to heaven and I'm no longer with them. I want to, yeah, when I'm with them, it's easy. But I want to see if they've learned yet how to do what I've shown them to do in the event that I'm just not here and they can't see me. What Jesus is trying to do in this moment is get them to understand that if they would hear the word, if they would go to the other side, if they would come on the water, if they would hear the word, listen, there are people in this room, God has spoken words into your life. You have journals full of words written down. You have voice memos recorded out the wazoo of words and promises God has spoken into your life and into your family, over your children, and you've believed the doubt as soon as the wind comes and traded your peace for unbelief, and you've never seen those promises. But what God is trying to get these disciples to understand is if you will hear the word and partner with that word in faith through the authority he gave you on the cross and resurrection, release kingdom into the world, you will redefine what's around you. Amen. He's trying to get his disciples, he's reproducing himself. He just sent his disciples to go heal and to cast out demons at their own hands. He just said, you feed them. He's saying, I just showed you what to do in the last storm. Now I want to see if I'm not there, if you'll hear my word, partner with it. This is when peace comes. Peace comes when we hear and recognize the word of God, partner with that word in faith and release kingdom. Why? Peace is in the atmosphere of the kingdom. Kingdom is made up of righteousness, peace, and joy. Hear the word, partner with the word. Sometimes God would rather do things through you than for you. I just believe it. I just believe that God put me on this earth not to do everything for me, but to learn to hear his voice, to hear the promises he's speaking into my life, partner with them, and start to release heaven on earth. It's the original job description that he put humans on earth to do. So he says, Peter, why did you doubt? Why did you doubt my word? I said, come. I gave you my promise. I gave you my command, my word. But then you saw the strength of the wind and you doubted. You see, it was in Peter's doubt that the supernatural ended, but it was in the doubt of the other 11 that the supernatural never began. It's no doubt that revivals and great awakenings and things are ended because men get in the way, but I wonder how many revivals, great awakenings, how many moments of kingdom being released on earth never began because of the doubt of his people. I wonder how many people in your workplace should have been saved long ago, but because the doubt of your voice in their life, you never even spoke to them. I wonder how many people that you cross on the day-to-day journey of life should have been saved, should have been healed, should have been set free and delivered at your hands. But you doubted the authority you carry. You doubted the word that God spoke. It says, wherever you go, preach the kingdom is at hand. You doubted it. I doubted it. I wonder how much of kingdom was withheld because of the doubt of his people. Peter, get out of the boat. Listen, Fred, you got to get out of the boat. Listen, life is too short to stay in the boat. Where is God calling you that doesn't look reasonable to man? Where is God calling you that doesn't look logistical? Where is God calling you that doesn't make sense? Why on earth would I leave my well-paying job to move across the country for this job, for this startup, for this vision he's put in my heart? Why on earth would I leave my well-paying job and move to Russia to be a minister to orphans? Why on earth would I leave? Why on earth would I take that investment? Why on earth would I make that investment? Why on earth would I put my family through? This doesn't make sense, Jesus. You wouldn't be saying that, really. Why? It doesn't make sense to my mind. Maybe he's trying to renew your mind. Listen, if there's a call, if there's a burden on your heart and God's saying something in your life and it doesn't make sense to man, it's probably God. This is how God moves. He moves through a mind that doesn't pay attention to reason as its main source of decision making. You got to get out of the boat. I would so much rather. Look, I don't ever want to be in life, at any season of life, and look back and say, man, I wonder if I would have gotten out of the boat there. What would have happened? Man, I don't ever want to live my life and look back and have regret. Man, maybe I just shouldn't have doubted that word there. Man, I don't ever want to. If I'm going to fail, I would so much rather fail in faith than fail in doubt. I'm just being real this morning. Like if I'm gonna step out and die, I'm gonna die trying to walk on water rather than die in a sinking boat. We've got to step out of the boat. In the first storm, the doubt of the disciples caused panic. In the second storm, the doubt of the disciples caused powerlessness. We have to step out of the boat. Here's where I'm winding down. In Mark 6, 51 through 52. You can go look it up for yourself, but the author writes that the disciples didn't understand what Jesus was trying to teach them, that they actually could do these things and had authority and all this stuff, because their hearts were still hardened. The root of a hardened heart is doubt. You doubt, you don't see, your heart's hardened. A hardened heart will blind you to the things of the kingdom. It will blind you. And because you're blinded, you don't see, it reinforces your doubt, and you're in this endless cycle of a calloused heart. But when the disciples' hearts were no longer hardened, what was their response at the end of the storm? Truly, you are the Son of God. The first storm, their hearts are still hardened. And their response is, who is this man? They don't believe Jesus is the Messiah. At the end of the second storm, finally, their heart's gone through enough softening that their response is, truly, you are Messiah. Truly, you are the Son of God. This life and life abundantly that Jesus talks about, that he came to bring us, it's his kingdom. We inherit his kingdom. And kingdom isn't just for eternity. After this life, kingdom is for now. We can walk in the attributes and the culture. As citizens of the kingdom, listen, you can tell the kingdom one belongs to by the culture of their life. We are called to walk in the culture of the kingdom that we belong to. This is life abundantly that Jesus offers us. I come to give you not just life, but life abundantly. It's in this life abundantly that you find the peace that is superior to the world's peace. The joy that's superior. It's in the kingdom, which is our responsibility to release on earth. But how do I inherit kingdom? There's only one way. His name is Jesus Christ. That's it. Jesus, he's the Messiah. He's the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes unto the Father but by him. I want to read 2 verses as I close. Hebrews 3, verse 16. I'm going to read this out of the Passion Translation. The same people who were delivered from bondage and brought out of Egypt by Moses were the ones who heard, still rebelled. They grieved God for 40 years by sinning in their unbelief until they dropped dead in the desert. So God swore an oath that they would never enter into his calming place of rest. Sounds a lot like peace. All because they disobeyed him. It is clear that they could not enter into their inheritance because they wrapped their hearts in unbelief. Listen, all because they disobeyed him. Listen. If the devil can get you to doubt, he can get you to deny. If he can get you to deny, he can get you to disobey. It worked in the garden, and he's never switched his tactic. If you are disobeying in any area of your life, it can be rooted back to doubt. If there's an absence of peace anywhere in your life, what word are you doubting? Are you in the word to know the word? What are you doubting? It can be traced back to doubt. Listen, it's not seeing or hearing that's going to transform you, change you. The disciples saw Jesus do a lot before the first storm. They even heard a lot. Didn't transform them. Listen, it's seeing, hearing, and then acting. It's the intentional decision that you make to act on what you've seen and what you've heard. The proof of learning is application. Hebrews 4. We're going to go to verse 6. Those who first heard the good news of deliverance failed to enter into that realm of faith's rest because of their unbelieving or doubtful hearts. Yet the fact remains, here's where it gets good, that we still have the opportunity to enter into the faith rest life and experience the fulfillment of the spoken word, the promise. For God still has ordained a day for us to enter into called today. For it was long afterwards that God repeated it in David's words. If only today you would listen to his voice. Do not harden your hearts. You too will enter into this peace. You too will enter into this kingdom. And for those who are citizens and believers, you too will then go out and with power and authority release kingdom into your home, to your work. Wherever you tread on this earth, you're to release kingdom. That is your job description as a citizen of heaven. If you're here today and you don't know Christ, it's no accident you're in this room. God ordained a day for you. That day is called today. And if you will not wrap your heart in unbelief, you too can enter this kingdom. Do you believe that this morning? Every head bowed, every eye closed.
Well, hey guys, I pray that today's message encouraged you. If you're ready to take that next step in your personal walk with Jesus Christ, I want to encourage you, simply click the link below or visit us online at mycitylight.org. If you've been hanging out, watching online, visiting us in person, and you want to get connected to a life-giving city group, maybe a life-giving serve ministry, maybe you want to sign up and take Fresh Start class, simply go to mycitylight.org and you can find all of those registrations right there online. If you're ready to financially partner with us and what God is doing in us and through this ministry here at City Light Church, simply go to mycitylight.org. You can give in person on Sunday mornings or just simply text any dollar amount to 84321. We love you, God bless you, and we hope you have a blessed week.